Hey, Robyn Openshaw here. Welcome to Take Action for Freedom. I run a mastermind for 4 years now, every Wednesday night. Most of the people in our mastermind have tripled and quadrupled their net worth, as have I. And I want to show you a little 2-minute video by one of my guests on the mastermind. I've been interviewing in our Wednesday night group some of the representatives from the custodial companies. So companies have been stepping up the last 5 years and saying we can custody your Bitcoin so that it's safe and so that you don't have this cold wallet and you have to remember or record and never have it be burned up in a fire or get unreadable in some way. We can custody it so that you don't have to worry about any of that. So, of course, I'm going to do my due diligence on that. And I have had 5 companies that I've done a deep dive with to decide whether I'm going to have some, not all, some of my Bitcoin is in cold storage, but some of my Bitcoin and what I can teach you about it. Because Trump just said the banks can now custody Bitcoin. It's going to take them months to get secure vaults and a setup so that you're safe from the employees of that bank stealing your Bitcoin. So that's not going to happen overnight. Okay. I mean, we're in January 2025 right now, and it's going to take a while, but that's going to happen. But this guy that I'm going to show you 2 minutes of a video that came out of my interview with him. And afterwards, everybody said, can you grab that video clip? Just to give you a little bit of background, he works for Swan Bitcoin. He's in his early 50s, and he spent 8 years working for a gold vault in Switzerland. And he shocked me by, at the end of our interview, my saying, is there anything more that you'd like to tell our members? And he said, get your money out of gold and into Bitcoin. Well, that really shocked me for somebody who spent 8 years working for a gold vault. And personally, I've been probably less trusting of the government and central banking for way longer than just the last 5 years that I've been buying Bitcoin. And I had been slowly over time as a single mom of 4 children, raising them by myself, I had been, as I could afford to, acquiring gold in small amounts. And I didn't run right out and sell over $1 million worth of gold and some of my silver because of what Alex said at the end of his interview. It was a lot more than that. It's that over time, I've become more and more uneasy about the answer to, well, what if the dollar tanks? What if life gets crazy expensive, being gold and silver, physical possession of gold and silver. First of all, your gold that you hold in your possession is as safe as the safe in your house and your ability to defend it. So that had made me nervous for a long time, especially every time I would leave town and I would come back a week later and be like, I hope somebody didn't break into my house. Well, now I don't have to worry about that anymore. Everything's trade-offs. Everything is cashing in one set of risks for another, but I want to de-risk as much as possible. So it wasn't just that Alex ended on that. I thought he was going to say something about, like world peace or whatever. But it was realizing, doing a little experiment where I had my assistant reach out to all of the gold and silver dealers within an hour of me. So she called like 5 of them and found nobody who was willing to buy my gold. And here we are, gold's at it's hit as high as over $3,000 an ounce. Gold's supposed to be this super hot commodity. All the BRICS countries, okay, the ones who want to trade outside the US dollar have been organizing. There's like 57 countries that have applied to the BRICS nations. Um, India, China, Russia, South Africa, bunch of other countries are joining. Well, you keep hearing that they're all buying gold, and yet I have 2 friends who sell gold, and they said we aren't, nobody's buying from us. everybody's wanting to sell to us, including people we sold the gold to 10 and 20 years ago. So that was making me nervous. And more people in Bitcoin are calling gold boomer money, which is a little bit funny. But it also got me thinking, like, gold doesn't really move quickly, right? Let's say you're going to move millions of dollars worth of gold and you need to send it to another country. Like Nixon had to give France back its gold in 1971 and he couldn't give them all of it. So he gave them some and then he detached the dollar from the gold system. So we just have this free floating US dollar now that isn't backed by gold. And we've all just carried on that way for my whole lifetime, except for my first 4 years. And we've all just had to accept the best that we can that our dollars are just these printed pieces of paper or combination of paper and linen or whatever they are, that they're backed by nothing besides the faith and confidence in the US government. So I decided to cash out of my gold, not just because of security risks and like all the crazy that goes on in my mind, like, would I really be able to shoot that gun if somebody broke in and said, give me your gold, give me whatever in that safe? Okay, really the major reason is that I thought, okay, people always think they're going to use their gold and silver in an emergency. Like what? We're going to be out walking around talking to our neighbors that none of us know anymore and like asking them what they have to trade and hey, do you want this silver coin? So I contacted my two friends who are gold dealers and they're like, we're not buying. And then Caroline, my assistant, called 5 companies within an hour and there was two of them who said we aren't buying at all anymore. And then there was like two others who would buy like not even 5% of what I owned. They're like, we'll take this much of that. Then we finally found one, but I would have to drive 3 hours round trip who would buy all of my gold and silver. So that got me to thinking about another thing Alex had said to us, which is that the liquidity of your gold is as strong as what's in the bank account of your local gold and silver dealer. So I think people buy gold and they're just like, well, I've heard it a million times. Gold and silver, they're tangible. They've been money for 5,000 years. They think that's as far as they think about it. Have you thought about who's going to buy your gold from you? And by the way, this gold company that I drove an hour and a half each way, and it took them literally took 4 people 3 hours to count it out and then wire money to my bank account. They didn't pay me spot price. Okay, so you can listen to what the spot price is, but I couldn't get it. I couldn't get it within, I had to expand how far it would be between my house and a couple hours from my house. And I actually have two homes. So she was casting a net within 2 hours of each of my homes. We found exactly one company that was healthy and liquid enough to actually buy my perfectly preserved, kept gold and silver. So, side note, that was kind of funny. They got some of my silver out that has been sitting out in a safe, being exposed to humidity, and it had gone all kinds of funky colors. They were like rainbow colors, and they like took it out of its little plastic sleeve and they were like showing it to each other. And I was like, oh man, they're not going to buy my silver. And they were like, no, this makes it worth more. It just proves that it's silver. So just funny side note. So anyway, not giving you financial advice, not saying your gold and silver is worthless, not true at all. I just gave all my kids silver for their birthday last August. Silver will always have value. It has industrial uses. I'm sure my children thought it was the unsexiest gift they've ever gotten. They're probably like, what can I do with this? But it gives me a chance to talk about sound money with my children who, all they know about money is I go do a job and they pay me money and I put it in my bank account. So that's probably what I knew when I was their age. No, wait, I was already teaching economics at BYU by then. Super basic freshman level economics, nothing too sophisticated. Learning about the law of supply and demand, opportunity costs, things like that. So, you ready? I'm going to show you this little 2-minute video that is Alex, who works at Swan Bitcoin. If you're worth six figures, reach out to me, DM me or something, and I will literally put you in touch with him by text. Because he's a concierge guy at Swan Bitcoin. He's the one who worked for 8 years at a gold vault, and his final parting words to us were, "Get out of your gold and silver and into Bitcoin." So here's what he says about the fact that back in whatever he says, 2018, 2019, he thought that Bitcoin had hit its peak and that everybody should get out of it. And he sold at $18,500, which he obviously is sick about now. So let's just listen. This is a super bomb little clip on why he thinks Bitcoin has been de-risked and that governments can't shut it down even if they want to. Here we go. You guys seeing how Bitcoin, the gamification of Bitcoin is going to eat the world?
Well, I'll tell you my own story, and that is I knew about Bitcoin in 2011, and like an idiot, I didn't take it seriously for many years. My primary objection to Bitcoin was I always thought the government was going to shut it down at any time. Like I was like, the U.S. government's not going to stand for this. Like just at any time, they're going to shut this down. And it was in 2019. Um, So the 2017, there was a big run up. I don't know if you guys recall, but Bitcoin went over $1,000 per Bitcoin for the first time ever. Gold was also over 1,000 an ounce. And it got me thinking about it. I was like, maybe I should buy some of this stuff. It ran up. I sold it at the end of that year at like 18 and a half. I thought it was a genius. I was predicting, I wrote a paper about it. I was predicting the downfall of Bitcoin. I'm like, this is the end. It's going to be like Beanie Babies and Pet Rocks. We're never going to hear from this thing again, right? Well, obviously that didn't happen. 2019, I'm looking at the charts. It's consolidating. I'm thinking this is going to run again. And what was nagging at me was like, why is this still here? This should not be here. The government should have shut this down a long time ago. What's going on? So I started doing research to answer that particular question. After a couple hundred hours, I came to the conclusion, oh, they haven't shut it down because they can't. They can't shut it down. Like at one point, when it was a baby, maybe they could shut it down, but they can't now. Why? Well, because it's highly, highly distributed. It's been downloaded hundreds of thousands of times. There's copies of the blockchain on hundreds of thousands of computers and on satellites in orbit now. If the government wanted to shut it down, they would have to get every country in the world to agree simultaneously to turn off the internet, which is not going to happen. But let's say they did. Then they would have to locate hundreds of thousands of nodes that have download copies of Bitcoin Core, and they'd have to destroy those, including the ones on satellites. And they would have to make sure that none of them were ever started again, because the minute they turn the internet back on, if one of those exists, the whole thing, boom, repropagates. So they can't kill it.
I believe that both Bitcoin and XRP are basically de-risked. And there's no, I'm not worried about government banning it because there's no will in this coming government.